Welcome back to yet another episode of the Off the Tools podcast. And I'm delighted to tell you that we have Andrew Drones back. We had so much to talk about on the last one. It was a 2-hour long episode and we ran out of time. So I thought it was very important to get him back to hear a little bit more around not what he's done, but some of the things that have opened up for him through personal development, mindset, and generally sort of like looking after himself. So welcome back, Andy. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me back. Thank you for having me back in the studio.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So we are recording this live from the Off the Tools HQ in the podcast studio. So hopefully the sound quality is on point. We're putting a lot of effort into professionalizing and making your experience as a listener a lot better. Just before we kickstart this episode, I just wanted to let you know that this is an open forum. So if you have questions, if you have subjects that you are interested in, just drop me a message. Drop me a message on Facebook, drop me a message on Instagram, and suggest or ask a question. And in future episodes, we might well be able to cover those, whether it's myself, whether it's with Andy, whether it's with other guests. So please don't just sit there silently listening, try and engage. Anyway, back to the guest. So Andy, this is your day. You're on day 2 of coming down to see me again. We did go out for dinner last night. We didn't drink too much, did we?
We didn't, no.
No, we were sensible.
It was a brainstorming evening, so notepads were out and a couple of small drinks were had.
Yeah, I think we did get a few funny looks sitting in a pub at 10 o'clock with our notepads out, but hey-ho.
Who cares, yeah. Just to let everyone know, this is a free-flowing, unscripted episode as well, so it's going to be a general conversation with value rather than it being following a specific program.
Like some other podcasts that like to just sell you stuff. Today is all about hearing, experiencing things that in the real world we have experienced, that we have either gone through or that we are going through. And yeah, it might last 20 minutes, very unlikely if you know Andy, and it might last 2 hours. Let's just see where it goes. So let's not cover any of your backstory. That was the previous episode. So if you haven't listened to that, make sure you go back one episode and you will be able to hear the full journey of Andy. But we did end the podcast talking about mindset and personal development, and we kept stopping ourselves because we felt it deserved a full conversation. So What does personal development and mindset mean to you, for starters? Because some people won't know those words. They'll be like, well, what does that mean?
So I'll slightly skim over a little bit of the backstory that we went through last time, just to give the right context before we go forward with mindset. So again, as everyone knows from the last episode, 12 years in the industry before I started to think, actually, I want a little bit more from life than just working 6 days a week, making a normal wage. So at that point then, this personal development journey started, and it actually started with some property education. But what it gave me was the business, the start of the business education journey, about how you can essentially, the sky's the limit if you have your own business and you have the right mindset. So personal development within the business world, for me, is about shaking, at its core, shaking those limiting beliefs and becoming your own, as cheesy as it sounds, becoming your own cheerleader. And what we kind of finished on the last episode was the limiting beliefs of people is particularly prevalent with trades, because most guys are in the trades, and most guys end up working for themselves, probably even more so, because of something that has gone on in the past. So whether that's a bad experience in a job, or they didn't do quite well enough in school, which is probably the most common denominator. And again, we touched on last time that probably the bulk of trades in the UK are probably neurodiverse to a degree. Most of us have probably got those ADHD traits, undiagnosed or diagnosed. And it makes it difficult to, let's say, hold down a job, let alone hold down something in an office-based setting, which is probably most of our idea, for most of us, is an idea of hell. And I did try that for a 6-month period, and it was a pure clock watching exercise.
I think, well, I certainly can resonate with that, definitely. I'm sure everyone else can.
The being out and being busy on the tools is stimulating, and it's allows you to focus, and there's always something to do, and it's kind of compounded when you work for yourself as well, that there is always something to do. But to sort of get back on track for the limiting beliefs that most people fall into, not necessarily fall into a trade, but often then fall into working for themselves. And it's at that point then where you become the architect of your own destiny and can construct your own pricing structure. But again, that's when most guys, because they've probably not had that personal development journey, they start to look at, oh, well, what's the guy down the road charging? What are most people in the area charging? And then maybe they'll add all them up and divide by the number of people they've worked it out to be. There might be a guy charging 70 quid, there might be a guy charging 85, and then they'll fall on an amount that they deem to be the right amount for them to charge as they're getting going, rather than thinking, well, actually, what value am I bringing, especially in the realms of what value am I bringing that's different or better than the other people in the area. You can't look at the one-man band guy down the road who probably doesn't have job management software or anything like that. He's doing his paper quotes, paper invoicing. You cannot compare yourself to him if you're operating in a different type of business, and that's generally the failing of a mindset thing, because they say, well, actually, I can't charge what a solicitor charges because I haven't been to uni, without looking at it from a very business sort of supply and demand perspective, and accepting that there's far less gas engineers around now, and it's going on a trend of that way continuing, than there were 5-10 years ago. And as a result, there's more people, there's more houses, and there's less engineers. So that supply and demand curve has changed. So a combination of the value you're bringing and the supply and demand curve, you should be able to. There is enough work out there for everyone. So, like you touched on the last episode, there's people who want the premium software and the premium service, and there's people who don't. So it's about positioning yourself with your charges that is right for the value you're bringing and how you like I say, become your own cheerleader, and not looking at everyone else because everyone's different. And the thing that prevents most guys from doing that is limiting beliefs. Yeah. So it's, well, I can't charge that much. I haven't been to uni. I can't charge as much as the solicitor. I can't earn what a doctor earns. Well, you can, because there isn't really a direct metric, because you're not on a salary. You're not on a standardised UK wage for a doctor, just again to use it as an example. It's trying to think about, well, actually, I'm operating a business here. I can charge within reason what I want to charge, because there is never a direct comparison. Yeah. I struggled with this. So to explain that a little bit about that journey, because I left the industry for a couple of years, it allowed me to come back with this fresh perspective of I'm not even going to look at what everyone else is charging. I'm going to look at the path that I want to take the business, what I think is the right amount of money to charge based on the value that they're bringing. It's like I've always said, the job that you carry out on site is probably only 50% of the product and 50% of the value that you're bringing. So for the guy that just turns up and does the job and that's the end of it, well, he's got his price. For the company that has an in-house office team, booking software, reminders, follow-ups, someone ringing up saying, checking the job's gone okay, all these little things, that adds to the value as well. So it's no longer that direct comparison, but it's ultimately about believing in yourself and believing in the product that you're bringing.
Yeah, I can't disagree with anything you've said there, and you used pricing as a sort of first point of call there, and it's probably one of the biggest limiting beliefs in the plumbing, heating, in the construction industry, and I'd probably say in most small businesses, because people put too much weight on what the end customer will think of that price. Whereas if you shift that mindset and be, how can I create the best value for that person, the price becomes part of it, but not the major part of it. And I understand why people do what you just said at the beginning about finding the local guys, seeing what they're charging, and sort of going for either a happy medium or going in slightly less than what some of the people are doing. The problem is as you clearly said, is that every business is different, every person is different. I get messages daily, weekly at least, asking me, what would you charge for that? What should I charge for this? And I'm like, well, it depends on everything you've just said, Andy. It depends on what value do you bring? Do you just write it down on a scrap bit of paper, turn up when you want and get in and out nice and quick? Or do you have a full customer journey that the customer has an experience rather than just a simple job done? So yeah, and that all comes from preconceived perceptions of what is acceptable, doesn't it?
Yeah, like it's such a common denominator on the forums as well of, well, what would you charge for this? Just started on my own, what would you charge for that? And it's different for everyone. Like if you, like I said before, if you're running loads and loads of software and you have a monthly burn rate of 10 grand, versus the guy down the road that isn't using software and he's not doing this, he's not got the in-house office or whatever, and his burn rate is 500 quid a month. He's no longer a comparable, so it's like you cannot just one size fits all to everyone. But again, that's that limiting belief. A lot of people don't think, well, actually, I'm bringing so much more value, combined with there's an abundance of work out there. I should be charging this, and like even. You don't even have to delve into your numbers completely just to know that you're bringing more value. So you need to be more than the guy that's not bringing as much value. We actively target customers who want a different level of service to what they've either had previously or what is maybe considered the norm. And then there's a price for that. But like you said, you have to believe in yourself or in your business that you're bringing that extra value, and that's why I hate that what you're saying. How much would you charge for this? It's like, well, it doesn't matter, does it? Like, it has to be what you need to charge.
I think a lot of it comes down to, when I would have started, I would have been that guy. I would have rang around the local companies, found out what the local charge was, and wonder why I wasn't making any money and why the business wasn't progressing. So to sort of segue a little bit off of just pricing, because the pricing is a huge issue and probably another complete podcast just to talk on pricing. But fundamentally, the reason I did that was because that was all I knew.
Yeah.
That was all I knew. The guy I worked with and worked for charged this. That the local competitors are charging that. Okay, well that's what I charge.
Yeah, I won't win any work if I'm more, so I can't do that.
So in your journey, what and how changed that perception for you? I'm guessing you must have gone through some sort of mindset shifts that from some personal development or through some book. Tell us about why you understood it, or how you come to the point where you did understand that concept.
A massive contributor was that time out of the industry that I said before. Mm-hmm. The time out of the industry gives a fresh perspective, and like you saying, then a lot of guys they've come up through the industry. They've done it since 16, 17, 18, whatever it is. So they've worked with the older guy who got trained by the older guy, and so on and so forth. Yeah. And the world's changed a lot. So it's sometimes you have to wipe the slate clean, so to speak, and get that fresh perspective. So whether it's on pricing or how you conduct the business, or just how you view things in general, sometimes you need to take a little bit of a step back, and it's so hard to do when you're in the trenches all the time. And that's, for me, was probably the pivotal thing. It wasn't so much that the journey that I was on with the development, for personal development and business training and things like that. It was just time out of the industry. I spent time operating in a different industry, which was, as I said on the last podcast, it was property related. And it's a very stark contrast in that kind of industry, because it's whatever you're thinking, think bigger. Yeah. That's you know what I mean. You're talking to people who've just done like they've maybe brokered a property deal and their fee was £500,000. It's like, well, that metric has not come from anywhere. That's purely born from the value that they're bringing. Yeah. They've sourced a £10 million house to someone who's happy to pay £15 million for it because it ticks every single box, and the money's no objective for that person. The broker in the middle is just a guy who's made two people come together for an investment purchase or a personal purchase, whatever it is. But because he believes there's enough value been brought to the table, that's what his fee is. Yeah. And okay, that's a bit of a grandeur scale, but there's plenty of those kind of things happening where, well, I've found that an investor is too busy to find it himself. So therefore, the value that I've brought to him is a massive time saving. So I'm going to charge 10 grand for it. Yeah. And that was just the common denominator of like, well, it's all about the value you bring. Like, I don't care what anyone else is charging. It's I'm brokering this deal, or it's my business, or I'm doing this. And that, like, it didn't take very long to be surrounded by those sort of people to start to, like, the cogs start to turn. Well, actually, what about if you bring that same attitude to a business that fundamentally, an industry, that fundamentally lacks that mindset? Because, again, it's the people you surround yourself with on the most part, isn't it? Sometimes you have, like, it's such a small amount of people who in this industry who think big enough to think I can achieve, X, Y, and Z. Without dwelling too much on price again, but that's, again, the thing that limits the growth in the business, because you hit capacity too soon and then you think, well, how can I possibly grow a business and take on staff when I'm only making this much myself and I'm working all day every day? Like, I don't understand what I can do differently. I can't increase my prices because people won't pay it. Whereas instead it's like, well, actually, like, people will pay it. It's just probably not the people who I've got now. And obviously one of the most fundamental things you said to me when we started working together was that your customers of the past and the present are probably not going to be the customers of the future as your business grows, evolves, changes, and you start to alter the way that you carry out your business. And that scares most guys.
Yeah, definitely. Before you go on, I want to backtrack to something that you said about the people you surround yourself with. And it's such an important aspect, and I've got a little story that I want to share. That a few weeks ago I posted in 2 plumbing and heating groups. Right, one is filled with your normal plumbing and heating engineer. It's called Plum Chat, and it's a place to talk about plumbing and heating. And then there's the other group, which is called Off the Tools Community, which is filled with business-focused people. And I put the same post in both groups. And the post, in essence, it was quite a long post, but basically I said, if you don't know the numbers in your business, if you don't understand the running costs and have a real good grasp on the numbers in your business, you shouldn't be in business. And it went absolutely berserk in both groups, but for both the contrasting different reasons. So in the Plum Chat group, it went berserk of people basically calling me out, saying I didn't know what I was on about, I've never known my numbers, and I'm fine, blah, 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 blah. And it was all very negative. And there was a handful of people that sort of agreed and put their own viewpoint in, etc. But the big contrast was that in the Off the Tools group, it was the complete opposite. Everybody was like completely, every every mistake comes back to not knowing the numbers. If I'd only known 10 years ago, I could have been in a different place. And now it's a non-negotiable. You have to understand the numbers. And that for me, it just prompted me to think about that moment, because there'll be somebody that only goes on plum chat or gas chat or whatever, right? Yeah. And yes, it's not in a physical form, but they're surrounding themselves with people of that mindset. Yep. And then there's some people that will only be in off the tools or alternative Facebook groups that are focused around business. And though they are surrounding themselves with that energy and that mindset, and obviously that transpires into the physical world as well. So if you're going out for days out with people that are negative and moany and miserable and unhappy, guess what? That's going to rub off on you. There's an old quote that you become the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So I really just wanted to emphasize for people listening, have a look at who you're spending time with. Have a look at what you're listening to, what you're consuming, because we're saying spend time with, but if you're listening to the news all day, every day, it's going to rub off on you, all of that negative energy. Yep. So a little challenge for all of you is to work out who are the 5 people in your life that you spend the most time with. And it could be friends, could be family, it could be work colleagues. Have a look at who you think the top 5 are and really dial in at who is that person? What are their intentions? What are their aspirations? What are their goals? And see if any of that lines up with where you are wanting to go. Because if it doesn't, it's going to act as an anchor. And sometimes you need an anchor, like I'm not saying don't speak to your mum if she, just because she's got a negative mindset or whatever it might be. But if you can change some of that consumption, whether it be in physical form of who you spend time with, whether it be in a digital form of where you socialize online, honestly, it will transform your mindset, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think families, like you say, families a little bit different.
It's a tough one. Yeah.
I think a good sort of way of looking at it is if you zoom out and look at it objectively, you get yourself and you get the the other 5 people that you spend the most time with, and you form like you say, the middle ground between all of those people. Is that the person you want to be moving forward in the future? If those other 5 mates are fighting to get to the pub at 2:00 on a Friday afternoon every single week, and that's their weekend, you might, I'm sure it's very enjoyable. You just want to spend some time in the pub with the mates, but does that need to be your driving force for your week? Is that what you want to push to? If you look at that from a zoomed out perspective over the next year, 3 years, 5 years, is that all you want to do? You want to live for the Friday afternoon, Saturday day, whatever it is, drinking sessions in the pub, just because that's what they do? Or, as I say, do you want to start looking, to better yourself and go to the pub? That's fine, but those kind of people who that's all they want to do are generally not people who have large aspirations and goals in life.
And there is nothing wrong with that. If that's what you want. If that's what you want, or if that's what fulfills your desire, I'm not saying that is wrong. All we're both, I would say, is saying is you need to align with what you want. And
make sure that is what you want.
If you're listening to this podcast or watching a clip of this show, somewhere in the ether, you have obviously wanted more than what you've got, because that is why you're sat here listening, isn't it?
Like the Plum Chat post, there was lots of guys who got very defensive with it, and they read your post as some kind of arrogant comment / attack on them as a person, instead of, whereas like you say on the Plum Chat, on the Off the Tools group, where it's the people in there who are looking to get a little bit more out of life and business, they were like, well, yeah, that you should know your numbers. You shouldn't you should have it. If you don't know your numbers, then you shouldn't really have a job. You shouldn't really have a business. You probably should have a job, because it's fundamental. And it's all right, all the guys in the plum chat one saying, well, why do I need to know my numbers? I'm all right. Well, that's all right while things are all right. But what about when they're not? What about if work dries up, you injure yourself, a family member becomes ill? If you don't know what your standard operating costs are, how can you, there might come a point in time where you need to do the bare minimum because of family commitments, but you don't know what they are.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing, I won't say an amazing, but it was an interesting post to read. And to go back to what you're saying about surrounding yourself with and the energy that you take from other people, I would bet that 10% of the people in there who commented in the same defensive way as a lot of the others were doing that fueled by those other people commenting.
Yeah.
Whereas
crowd
if they'd have been,
isn't it?
they'd have been sat in a, let's say they'd have been someone who would normally have made that kind of comment of, well, what's it got to do with you? Why do I need to know my numbers? Had they been sat in a room with some off the tools members, and that thought might have come into their head, but then there's 5 lads sat around them saying, yeah, but you need to know your numbers, really, don't you? Let's just scribble it down quick, fast on a piece of paper. You've got your van, you've got your tools, you've got your insurance,
marketing,
that's as long as you covered that, you're good. That's at least a start into it. And they go, well, yeah, you probably should know the basics, shouldn't you? And then the mindset starts to move with it, rather than. But again, that the defensiveness is in itself, or the retaliation against your post is a defensiveness, because they don't know the numbers, and internally they probably know they should know them. Yeah. But the two,
it's sort of when you're overweight, isn't it? You know you're doing something wrong, but you're like, what? I don't get it. Why do I keep putting on weight?
Yeah, probably a bit of a triggering thing, but 90%, at least 90 to 95% of people who are overweight is through a product of their own doing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you want to be walking around with a six-pack. We've all got busy lives. We're a bit older. We've got kids, whatever it is. But if you're really, really overweight, can you, and you don't have an underlying health condition, it's because you're eating too much food for what you're burning. It's not no one's being nasty by saying it. It's just the reality of calories in, calories out. And we all do. We all had a shit day and we'll go and have that bar of chocolate. But you have to accept that. Yeah. That's your choice, and you've done that. If you don't know your numbers, and someone says you should know your numbers, really, that's just a fact. Because
that was my viewpoint. I knew it would be inflammatory. Yeah. Right. Why I posted it, but for me, it's as fundamental as drinking water every day. If you're in business, and I just wanted to see that view, but I just wanted to sort of test out the difference in the mindsets of different groups of people, and get a gauge to whether my gut feeling of how it would go would actually transpire, and I was proved right, sadly, that was the way it went. So that, anyway, I thought that was an interesting example to share with the listeners, because not everyone would have seen that. That's it in a
nutshell, really, isn't it? Yeah, because like you said, the people in the Off the Tools group who are, say, probably the same kind of people who are listening to this podcast, are the people that want to move forward and grow. You don't need to have a 10-man team doing 3 million, 4 million, 5 million a year of turnover. They just might, well, actually, I'd like to have, maybe a couple of lads working for me. I don't maybe have to work quite as much. Maybe I can get someone answering the phone, and that would be great for me. But to get to that stage, you can't just do it through working hard and being busy. You've got to know, well, actually, at what point can I start to look to take someone on? It's a very different kind of people, and like you rightly said, that comes from, it's probably not so much an internal thing, it is probably just the people you surround yourself with. People saying, like say, use the pub analogy, but those kind of guys probably don't know the numbers. They probably just know that as long as I've got 100 quid in my pocket come Friday afternoon, I'm good to go. Mortgage is paid or whatever it might be. But the energy that's absorbed from the people in those circles it's everything, really, isn't it? Because it's too hard to get to exactly where you want to on your own, and we've spoke about that a lot over the last sort of 24 hours of it's very hard on your own, and you need to lean on, talk to, absorb the energy from those people around you.
Well, last night's a prime example, right? So in the day, we were doing business, right? So we were client and business relationship. Come the evening, it was just two mates going out. We could have easily chosen to get drunk, drink a load of drink, chat a load of shit, and have that sort of night. But the energy from the day, the energy of our personalities, our mindset, we knew this is a prime time to sit down and talk about what we want to achieve, how we want to go forward in the future. And again, it comes down to the person that was there, doesn't it? Yep. If that was an old schoolmate of mine or whatever that I took out for dinner, it could have gone a completely different route and probably ended up ruining the next day. The people and the information you consume basically makes you. You become that. So take a look at it. And
to backtrack a little bit, that can start like we were saying about the school thing. They didn't quite do very well in school, so they stumble into a trade and into apprenticeship, and that's the start of that journey, isn't that? That limiting beliefs. And it's been quite a while since we was in school, but I'm sure it's probably maybe a little bit softer nowadays because we live in a softer world. But it's probably delivered in a way where, like, you're probably not going to be suitable for uni. Like, it probably might be best if you get a trade. That's a soft way of putting it, isn't it? Whereas you go back a little bit further, it's probably like, you're going to have to get a trade, mate, because
what else are you going to do?
You've done shit in school. Like, deal with it. Like, you're not going to be suitable. You're never going to get into college or whatever it is, and that especially at that age, leaves a bit of a scar. And again, I wonder, or I'd have to assume rather, that the fact that I entered the industry at a later age allowed me to not be sort of mad with that same brush kind of thing. I didn't start doing it till I was 22, 22, 23. So I was a little bit more sure of what I wanted. Whereas if I'd have done it since I was 16, then I know I would have been hit with that same kind of thing. I'm not done well in school. I was told I'm not done well in school, and I'm not going to then be able to go to uni because I've not got enough points nowadays.
Yeah,
is it like I've not got at the time it was I've not got enough qualifications, X number of GCSEs. So then you're thinking, oh well, this is me now. This is what I'm destined to do now. I'll just go and fit boilers, and it is what it is. I can do all right. I can get some cash in hand, and I'll do it's better than having a job. I can earn way more money working for myself as a gas engineer than going, trying to get through college and then just ending up with a low level kind of job anyway. But then that's it. The growth is stunted because of one little thing you might have got told. Like I've not got any. I'm no good with numbers. I did crap in maths, or I'm no good at business planning, or whatever it might be. And it starts from that point. And most guys find it impossible to pull themselves out of that. They just that's it. They're stuck in it. And as you say, they become accidental business owners because it's so easy to become self-employed in the trades. It's so easy, like you said before.
Easiest, business to start, isn't it?
Especially, I suppose gas is a little bit different because of the coals. But in terms of plumbing, handyman stuff, fitting outside taps or whatever it is, even which we was talking about this morning, fitting bathrooms. You don't actually need a qualification.
You just need to put your name out there and get.
You just need some tools to do the job. You know what I mean? It's very easy to dive into that sort of stuff, but then, as I say, that's it. Then you just get stuck in it. And again, one thing you try and tell your mentees about is you need to take the time out to not be busy just for busy's sake, because without having that headspace, you will be stuck in that same mindset constantly. I've just got to keep working. I've just got to get my head down, and maybe in the future I'll set myself free, and maybe I might have enough to buy a property, or I just need to pay the mortgage down and then I won't have to work as much, because you're never primed for that thought process of, actually, let's look into it. Like say, I was fortunate that I had the time out of the industry to be able to sit down and, let's be honest, geek out a little bit on the numbers. Like, I think it's something like, I haven't checked it as of late, but I think last time I checked it was 67% of gas engineers are over 55.
That's phenomenal.
And that was a couple of years ago, last to check that data. But that, like, and then you can delve into that more, and something like every year, there's 4,000, for every 4,000 gas engineers that leave the industry and retire or move abroad or whatever it is, only 1,000 come back in.
Yeah. So that deficit's just growing year on year, isn't
it? And that doesn't, I didn't even get as far as having the metrics of, well, a lot of the guys that then come in go down the renewables route. Gas boilers are going to be here for the next, I would say, at least 30 years.
Yeah.
Because, renewables are not always suitable. So then I'm thinking, well, there's only 1,000 coming in for every 4,000 going. So that's only 25% coming back. Then there's, maybe 30% of them are going to renewables. I'm thinking, actually, there's a lot of opportunity coming here. Like, what can you do with that? But again, that takes that different perspective or mindset to be able to look at that and think, well, actually, there's an opportunity here, other than thinking, oh yeah, I'll probably just get busier, and you know what I mean. You have to look at it. Actually, how can I capitalize on this opportunity now, as there's going to be more and more work required. But again, it's being able to not think too small with it, and you've got to.
So let's go into coaching mode here for a little while. Let's just explore. So if you're sat there listening, right, and you don't know your numbers really, you're slugging it out a little bit. You're working hard, but don't really feel like you're progressing. You're sort of just treading water. What is your take on where to sort of what to do next? How do you get out of that funk and start moving forward? What's your advice?
So, the first thing you need to do is to try and get yourself out of the trenches for a period of time. I'm not saying a long period of time. For in an ideal world, you say you want to start taking half a day a week. Let's take your Monday morning or your Friday afternoon to then sit down and make a list of things that, like, make a start on your numbers, as you've said before. So make a start on your numbers, look at where you want to get to with the business, whether that's big team, couple of extra guys, you just want to work less, you're happy with it just being you. You want to try and take some time to be able to work on the business rather than constantly working in the business. The reality is there's always some time somewhere. So whether it's a Friday afternoon where you'd normally go for your drinks, it might be a nighttime thing, it might be where you'd normally slump in front of the telly to watch your box set. There's always going to be time. Something Alex Hormozy always goes on and on about is that even people with 9-to-5 jobs, you still spend more time out of work. Okay, you need to sleep, get that, but you still spend more time out of work than you do in work. You've got your evenings, you've got your weekends. There's always time to sit down, grab a bit of paper or grab your phone, and just starting by writing down where you want to be in a year's time, 5 years' time, 10 years' time. It doesn't have to be a massive goals. Like I said before, you might actually think, yeah, I do want 10 lads working for me. But then you might think, actually, it'd be nice to just work, let's say, be able to do the school run and the school pickup. You might want to do that. So actually currently I'm out at 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm only home at 8 o'clock at night. What do you need to change in your business, in your life, to be able to do the school run, starting with once a week, twice a week? Again, a lot of that's probably going to come through pricing or better time management, maybe saying no to customers, which is very, very hard to do. And if you want to stay in that coaching mode, something I've said to guys who've come to me for advice is that you need to stop saying yes to everything. In my heating business, it's a very simplified business model, and that has a knock-on effect in making things easier because it does create more headspace. If you're doing everything, and there is going to be guys out there who are doing outside taps, they're doing bathrooms, they're doing full heatings, first fixes, second fixes for builders, they're just saying yes to absolutely everything. Again, write that down. Is that what you want to do? Is that going to be sustainable moving forward? Because it's very hard to scale a business where you're saying yes to everything because everything's different. It's all right when it's just you and you know where you're at, but how are you going to get a team in place? How is the person in the office going to be able to deal with the vast difference between someone ringing up for a bathroom quote and someone ringing up to ask for have the boiler serviced? There's a stark contrast between the two, and you've got to think, again, like I said, you're looking at the numbers of engineers out there. You don't really need to say yes to everything anymore. Niching down is better for your own headspace, but it's better as a business model anyway, in my opinion. And that can create headspace. If you have a very simplified model, let's say just for an example, because I'll use it as an example because it's what we do. If your business is mostly focused on boiler servicing, that's a standardized price. The work is mostly the same. When someone's dealing with the inbound calls and they're quoting out for them jobs, it's pretty much a cookie cutter approach. It takes 60 to 90 minutes for a full strip down, with burner gasket changing and all that sort of stuff, and it's this price. So we know how many can be done in a day, we know how much we're going to charge. It's really easy to do that. So you're not filling all of your free time thinking, oh, well, tomorrow I've got this and then I've got to do that, I've got to pick this up. Standardized approach will start to create that headspace. That's probably one of the core things we both try and tell people to do. If you're trying to do everything, you'll never be excelling at it from a business perspective, and your headspace is just going to be gone. And we all struggle with headspace in this game because it's just busy, especially in the busier months. It's just crazy times. You need to force on yourself time to work on the business instead of in it, because in the long term you'll be better off for it financially, but definitely with the mental side of things.
I would add working on yourself as well, and that concept to a lot of people sadly isn't understood, and for me the working on myself was what unlocked the businesses. Does that make sense? So yeah. I still remember it. My brother gave me it, Rich Dad Poor Dad. It was the first self-help, personal development book that I'd never even heard of personal development. It was like, what is this? But once I'd read that book and then I listened to it as well, I was a different person. It literally opened up a completely different pathway that I didn't even know existed, because it's not the most informative book, but for me it literally opened up that other door that then I walked through, and since then obviously I've gone on and read and listened and trained and been coached and coached other people, and and have gone down a completely different path simply because fundamentally I worked on myself. I was willing to put aside some hours, read a book that I'd never read a book, not as a kid. I wasn't a reader.
It generally only takes the one as well, doesn't it? It's like Pandora's box.
Yeah, because once it's open, once you see, there's the path I was on, but there is now this other doorway that I can open. And once that's open and you look through and you're like, I can't go back there. Yeah. This is too light. There's too much opportunity. If I
There's an abundance of opportunities. Yeah. I think it's like, I don't want to delve too deep into, bashing the government or the world or whatever you want to say. But even if you just take the UK government, they don't want everyone to be entrepreneurs. They don't want everyone to have access to uncapped earning potential. There needs to be a workforce, and that's fine for people who want that, but it's not fine for everyone to think in the way where
that's the only
that's
choice.
The only choice. Yeah. And again, the working for yourself thing, people often think, well, this is my only choice because I'm not suitable for a job, whether you are neurodiverse or whether you're just someone who just can't deal with being tied down into that job setting. But you need to delve into, like, too many people are thinking it's hoo-ha, that personal development. Sounds a bit hoo-ha, but it only has to start with just the one book.
Do you remember, like, the light bulb moment for you? Like, was there a specific, or was it more of an cumulative process for you?
It was, probably have to say, YouTube videos, I think, for me.
Yeah.
Rather than a book. Mine came the other way around. I've read plenty of development type books, but it did start with, and we spoke about this before, it's common for lads in the trades, especially the ones who are doing a bit of everything, to think property is the solution to my pension or my retirement. So then
it's sort of connected to, like,
the tool work,
side,
it's that. Well, actually, if I can somehow buy a house because of my skill set, I can do the house up at cost.
Yeah.
And I don't have to, like, whereas if I worked in an office and I didn't have any tool skills, I'd have to pay for it all myself, and that wouldn't then be a viable investment. Whereas if I can do it all myself, then happy days, I can just chip away at it, do a full eat-in on a day where, on a Saturday, when whatever it is, and then get this house, stick a tenant in it, and then that'll build towards my retirement. So that was the start of things for me. That was where I thought my pathway would have to be. I do predominantly emergency call-out work. There's days where, because the hourly rate that you got paid for that work was quite high, because you had to be ready to take the call and get there within 90 minutes. So my logic at that point was actually, well, if I buy a house, I'm doing a house up, you know what I mean? I could be, first fixing the heating system or first fixing the bathroom. The phone rings, I'm already in my work stuff, I'm already in the van, I put my tools back in the van, I go do the job, I come back and I carry on with it. That seems a logical thing. But it started with then start looking online, what's the best strategy to deal with this, and then you stumble at, like, the BRR strategy, which is the buy, refurbish, refinance strategy, which is there's the common one with tradesmen. You can buy a house, save up some money, buy a house, let's say a cheap house, 80 grand, because it needs loads of work. You renovate it, you then make it worth, let's say, 120 grand. You then put a mortgage on it. The idea is that you pull most of your money back out and you try to repeat the process because you've pulled so much of your money out. And that was where the journey started. I was convinced that would be my solution to my problems. Yeah. But through constant more looking at stuff online, YouTube videos and Googling stuff, I went a little bit more down the route of well, actually, there's so many options when it comes to things like this. You don't need to do the old school way. And that was the start of the snowball effect of then, well, actually, what's this about, like, investment? What's this about debt and how you can leverage debt? And it just went from there, basically. But like you say, it only needs to be one pivotal moment. And that could just be, again, to reference the interesting post on Plum Chat, it could just be a different conversation with a different person than what you're normally around.
Yeah.
Like, that's all it needs to start, whether it's just going, jumping on a webinar or watching a YouTube video, or, everybody should want to try and make the most of what they've got in their life, even if it's for the benefit of kids or, your partner, your parents, whatever it might be. You might not have massive aspirational goals, but everyone could do with more money. Like, if I said to the guys in that group are always like, well, I don't need to know my numbers. Why are you asking that? It's none of your business. If you were to say to them, well, would you not like to set your kids up later in life? Would you not like to retire your mum because she's still working? would you like this lump sum of money to be able to do that, or would you like me to increase your earnings so that you can do that? 99.9% of them would say yeah. So if you've got it in your power to achieve that, why wouldn't you strive to do that? And that's the thing, that just one of them guys just having a conversation with someone else would start them on that journey to thinking, actually, I only have to do a little bit of this or a little bit of that, and my life or my family's life will be better as a result of it. Like you say, it only needs to be. There's such a small thing. For you, it was reading the Rich Dad Poor Dad book. For me, it was starting to Google about investment. It only has to be a very small thing, and there's so much access nowadays that we live in a different world. You carry a computer in your pocket, you can pull it out and go, actually, how can I make myself a better business owner in my plumbing and heating business? What options have I got out there? How can I make this better, or how can I work less for it?
I think patience is something that as a species we're losing, and I think a lot of people tries to change but don't have the patience to let it compound. Like if I look back at my own journey, nothing happened fast, nothing, and the stuff that did happen fast didn't last. And it's such an underrated skill, and for those that know Andy, patience probably isn't one of his virtues. He wants to move quickly, but in the last 2 to 3 years, being patient and accepting that it ain't gonna happen tomorrow has put you where you are, hasn't it? Did you know, like, you couldn't have got where you are without that patience, even though you fought the patience of it, but that ultimately has got you where you are, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's not a fast-moving industry anyway. And yeah, like you say, ironically, my business model is intrinsically tied to a slower start with momentum building, because we've actively targeted a compound growth strategy. We've actively targeted recurring work. So, safety certs, servicing, things like that. So you have to have the patience and that's, again, guys, and again, most of us, again, to use the heating industry, is generally chasing the higher ticket items, such as boiler installs, but there isn't generally a longer term benefit from doing that unless you're going to then ensure you stay on top of then servicing that boiler, etc. They're always looking at the now. Like you say, it's that lack of patience and the lack of vision to say, well, actually, if I do this kind of strategy and I don't chase these high ticket items to get higher amounts of money right now, we can grow something that's better longer term and maybe less tied to yourself. But it's just like you say, it's a lack of willingness to stick with a plan and have confidence in the plan that with time it's going to produce something better a little bit later.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Let's shift the conversation a little bit. And how important is looking after yourself in all of this? Like, you obviously you're in good shape. Have you always been in good shape? So is it something that you've just always had? So from someone that has been very overweight, I wasn't blessed with that natural ability of like looking after myself. I've had to really, really work on becoming a healthier person, becoming a more vibrant person. So for me, that is the core change. If you've got to change yourself physically and mentally for that then to transpire into your business, into your personal life, into your family. What's your sort of experience with that?
Yeah, I am one of those guys who thinks it all starts with with personal health. For me, I've always been of that mindset because my dad's always been of that mindset. My dad played rugby for 30 odd years, and as even now at 70 years old, is in the gym 5 days a week.
Wow.
It was just ingrained into me, and it was ingrained to my sister. My sister's a health fitness nut as well. Me and my sister have done high roxes together. We've done other events together, in mixed doubles events, because it's just always been intrinsic to us. Yeah, but naturally there has been times where my training has slipped, when personal things have got in the way, and like you've said, it's all intrinsic. So if you're training, let's say you're training 5 days a week, you're up early and you're training 5 days a week, the likelihood of you eating shit for the rest of the day is massively reduced, because you're like, well, I'm training, what's the point? And conversely, if you're not you're not going the gym at all, you're thinking, I'm just going to eat what I want, what's the point? Yeah. And they go hand in hand. Just as then the knock-on effect of all that, the feeling better within your body because you're eating better, feeling better about how you look because you're training and eating better, then builds your confidence. Your confidence then fuels into how you like the saying is of how you do anything is how you do everything. And that it starts the momentum starts to build from that. You can go as far into it or as little into it as you want. Some people only need to just get out and do a walk, and that's enough to clear their mind, and that they can attack the day. Some people need a bit more. I'm one of those weirdos who gets in the ice bath in the morning nowadays because I've got a busy home life and a busy business, and it needs a little bit more for me to get dialed in, and building a routine. To segue a little bit into that, I do think a routine sets you free. Before
we go on to routine, because this is going to be a very important part of today's discussion. But it was before your time. So 2017, 2018, you probably didn't know who I was back then. That was when I sort of started to change my physical life. So I was 115 kilograms, I think. I'm only 5'8", so I was a fat little fucker, is probably what most people called me. And I knew I was depressed. I was fucking just in a bad place, And obviously, the combination of reading the books and learning, it opened that pathway. And I did a series online. Like I would post me working out at jobs, right? And the amount of stick I got for it was unbelievable. People took the piss out of me people still take the piss out of it. I would do things like, we would be on a job and I'd get the stack like boxes out and do like step ups onto it and be like, look, I know we're all busy. I know life's busy. At that point, I was working like 7 a.m. till 6 p.m. every day, 4 kids, I had no time. And I wanted to sort of showcase that you can do something, even if it's little. So I posted videos of me like doing step ups on, doing star jumps next to the van, and like doing all crazy stuff. But the reason I mention that is because I was severely overweight and prospects looked absolutely shit. And I had to make that change in some way. So if you're sitting in the van listening to this, and you're like, I just haven't got the time. I just can't do it. There is a pathway. You've just got to have patience. You've got to find, right, can I get up 20 minutes earlier and go for a walk? Can I, while I'm at a job waiting for it to settle and fill up, can I go to the back of the van and just get a toolbox off and do 100 step-ups, and then next time do it carrying the toolbox in your hand and step. Do you know what I mean? I know it sounds weird, right? And it's like, well, fucking hell, what is that going to help? If you did that every day and you managed to get 100 up and down onto a toolbox carrying a 20-kilogram tool bag, you're going to see improvements. You're going to see better energy. And then that will lead into, then once you start, it's like a drug. It is a drug. Our body releases dopamine and serotonin and all of these different chemicals. So it is self-fulfilling, isn't it? You've just got to get bloody started. And that leads us on to routine. Okay? Everyone, I think, very rare would you find someone that says, I can't improve my routine. So what does that mean to you? And what is it that you have like implemented in your life to sort of get some more structure in and get that routine and that fulfills everything else?
So I think if you threw another post onto probably any forum actually, or in any realm of life, aside from money, if you asked anyone what would they like more of, they'd probably say time. Almost everyone would say time.
No, it's why my tagline is more time, freedom, and profit. You know?
So to get more time, you have to then start taking action and creating a structure to your life, because so many people, and we all do it, waste the time doing shit. Whether it's binge watching a box set, and obviously you always need your downtime, but do you need to watch 4 episodes? You know, can you watch?
You do if it's like Peaky Blinders or Yellowstone. You have to suck them in. But anyway,
but you could watch 3 tonight. We've all done it. I'm murdered for it myself. Like, but there's always a point where you can watch one less episode and go for a walk. Because then, like you say, the momentum builds. Then we've just spoke before about, sitting down and taking the time out to think about if you're happy with whether it's your life or your business or the kind of work that you're doing. If you go for a walk, you can do that at the same time. If you go for a jog, you can think well, actually, I've got them jobs this week. I don't really want to be doing them jobs. I've got too long in the tooth for fitting radiators, just for example, because I hate it.
He mentions it all the time. I think he really hates radiators.
Like I don't want to do that anymore. How can I stop doing that? Like, do I? I need to get a guy who's shit out at fitting radiators on the team, and then that can be his jam, or we don't do them for the next 6 months while we focus in on something else, and by then I will be ready to take on an installer or whatever it might be. Everything just builds. So, but the thing with time, everyone's going to say, I don't have enough time to do that, to build a routine, but a routine will inevitably give you the time.
It's like chicken and egg, isn't it? It's like what comes first.
For me at the minute, I'm trying to build a new routine. My business is ever changing. I've got new members of staff starting over the next month or so, both in the office and on the tools. So things are taking more of a shift. But for me at the minute, it's trying to get up before the kids. One of my twins has additional needs, so his sleep pattern is very inconsistent. So it's not always super easy. Sometimes you need to flex a little bit, but it's generally trying to get up before the kids and get the ice bath in and get a decent breakfast in. So for me, that's some scrambled eggs or some poached eggs, something like that. But for me personally, and it isn't for everyone, but the ice bath really clears my brain. Plus, it's the challenge of doing it. It's not nice when you get in, but it's nice afterwards. So I like to talk about the dopamine thing. There's something like a 250% increase.
So cocaine gives you the same dopamine response as doing 3.5 minutes in an ice bath.
Yep.
So
wild, isn't it?
You've got 2 choices, guys. You either go and sniff a load of cocaine or you get in an ice bath for 5 minutes. Like, come on.
Don't do the former.
Definitely don't do that one. But that's the level of chemical reaction, though, that a simple thing of the routine. Yeah. Sorry, I jumped in there. Go on, carry on with what you do.
But it's right, because that's puts you in the right frame of mind. And you can find the extra time to do that. If you're struggling to get up in the morning, and I'm one of those, I'm a night owl as my standardised thing. But since having the boys, it's had to shift to going to bed earlier, because I can't, like, my brain is the most switched on. We spoke about this yesterday, and it was evident when we went out for dinner. My brain is the most switched on in the evening, and I'm always groggy in the morning. So,
testament to that, because at 10 o'clock, Andy was sitting down ready for another 2-hour chat about plans, weren't you? And
I was like, it's time to go home. I'm tired. I'm like, what? I'm just getting going. Opening a new page on my pad. So if you're like that, then you need to try and hack it. So that might be, like I said before, watching one last episode on the box set, going to bed a little bit earlier, so then you can get up a little bit earlier, and then you're a bit more ready to attack the day. If you're waking up groggy every day and slogging through the day because you've only been to bed late, then you are always going to be stuck in the trenches, and you're never going to be able to pull yourself out and do something. Start the journey that we were saying before of, finding that pivotal moment, whether it be reading something like Rich Dad Poor Dad, or, stumbling stuff online, or changing what you're doing out there, or changing your pricing structure so you can shave one, even if you just upped your pricing by £5 per service, for example, and that's, you lose what equates to one job a week, but your take home is probably a little bit more. But even if it was the same, and you're shaving that one job off a week, that's the school run
you just
window.
Gained it. Yeah, you just gained
or
it. Yeah.
A walk, or an ice bath, or whatever, whatever you want to do. But if you're shaving that time, it could be then a bit more time to, like I say, spend with the kids. It could be anything, and it's all comes back to starting with that mindset. If you've got that clear mind, healthy body, it's all intrinsic. If you're not charging enough, rushing around during the day, eating a pie while you're first fixing your pipe work, like, you're never going to be primed to get the best from yourself in your life. And there'll be plenty of guys thinking, fuck that, I'm fine, I'm doing all right. But it's when you're not. Yeah. When something bites you in the arse, whether it's your health bites you in the arse,
you'll have 1,000 problems until we have one health problem.
Yeah. Chomping that pie or whatever it is while you're working, doing that, rushing around just to get it done. It's all right when you're in your 20s, but then it starts to catch up with you. Like I say, I'm not trying to be like some sort of health advocate thing. It's more the routine thing that I'm trying to push. And if you're just constantly rushing around like mad because that's all you think you have to do, then surely you must have to. You can know it. You know within yourself that that's not sustainable, and you should be able to achieve more from life. If you're a shit hot installer or a shit hot service and repair engineer, there must be a part of you inside that thinks, I can do more with what I've got. Like, you know what I mean? If you're running around doing 40 quid gas certs for a letting agency, of all those jobs that you do, there's going to be some of them that let's say, again, use the letting agency. There'll be some of those landlords. I know landlords is a tricky conversation, but bear with me. There'll be someone in that mix who wants a better level of service than what you're getting them. And that's, you've just got to think. And not think, you've got to believe that you can do more than what you've perhaps always known, or probably more relevant, what you've always been perhaps told because of the people you're surrounding yourself with.
When I think of routine, I know when again, it comes back to patience, because I see so many people that I work with or have worked with try to change everything at once. And that comes down to patience. The best bit of advice I can give about changing your routines and doing things is do it one thing at a time. So don't set up yourself to fail. So don't go, right, tomorrow I'm going to get up an hour earlier. I'm going to read half an hour of a book. I'm going to go for a half an hour run, and then I'm going to get in the ice bath, and then I'm going to cook myself a healthy breakfast. If you try to do all of that change, if you've done nothing up till today and you decide, right, tomorrow is going to be my morning routine, I can almost guarantee that within 4 to 5 days, you're not going to stick at it. Yep. Whereas if you have the patience to go, right, do you know what I'm going to do? For the next week, I'm going to wake up 20 minutes earlier, and In that 20 minutes, I'm going to take the time to prep a healthy breakfast to start my day. So that's just one change. And then you do that for a week or two, and then you go, right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go 20 minutes earlier than that. And in that extra 20 minutes that I've now gained, I'm going to get straight up, I'm going to go for a walk as the new addition, and then I'll do what has now become the normal of prepping your breakfast and eating your breakfast. And if you do that slowly and wait another couple of weeks, before you know it, you've now got 2 key elements of your morning routine tied up.
Yep.
And then you layer in another bit if you want to. You know, you might find that that's enough for you. You know, that little change might be the pivot moment that swings the pendulum to get you focused in and doing more. But it comes down to that patience of changing small things. You are where you are, not because of who you are, because of what you've done.
Yep.
So all of your habits up to today, you standing there in front of me now, you're the sum result of your habits over the last 20 years, 10 years, whatever time frame, right? So you're not going to wake up tomorrow and change everything overnight. It's not
3 months,
possible.
isn't it, to build a habit?
They reckon 28 to 60 days, depending on the type of personality you've got or something. So if you are listening to this, well, you are listening because I'm not talking to myself, so someone's listening somewhere, I hope. Start today. What can you do between now? So whatever time of day it is that it's 10 o'clock at night and you're listening to this, what can you do today that you haven't done before, or what you maybe haven't done for a long time? Do something different and build on that momentum, please, because it really sounds simple and sounds easy, but it is in a way, but it isn't in the other way, because we as a culture have self-discipline problems, you know, and please, I honestly, it won't change your life tomorrow, but it will slowly change what is going on internally, externally, and then that plays into how you show up into your family. That shows up in how you provide for your business and what you do. What do you have on the horizon for your routine? Like, it sounds like you've got your morning one sort of nailed in, and are you layering in more onto that, or are you quite content where you are and you're going to look at other areas to sort of implement some routine?
Yeah, so training's the next thing for me at the minute. While I do manage to always find the time to do it, it's not as structured as I would like it, because we are in this strong growth phase of the business. So I am a believer of, like, if you can train, again, this is something my dad's always pushed, like, train in the morning before you do anything else, because then there's always challenges that arise in the day, especially in the industry that we're in. There's always going to be challenges that arise that are going to either make you discouraged to do it, or they're just going to get in the way. Especially, obviously, then when we get to silly season, the things tend to build through the day, and the jobs tend to stack. So the next thing for me, and this is when I've got the next member of staff who's going to join the inside the office, the next office team member that's starting, is going to remove my need to be into the office early in the morning. And the next thing for that is going to be to be consistently training in the morning. Whatever that happens to be, I do a bit of everything, to be honest with you. So whatever that happens to be, whether it's going for a run or whatever, but then again, that it just builds from that with that clear. You're ready to attack the day. And it doesn't, as I said before, it doesn't have to be doing a high rock session. It doesn't have to be doing a sprint. It just what works for you. If you can just get up and do a walk, that's better than not doing one, isn't it, ultimately? And then in the realms of business, you want to try and do the same thing, really, don't you? You want to try and start to build that routine that isn't just going out working. If it's like you say, chopping off a episode at night, going to bed half an hour earlier. If you value that downtime at night, transfer it into the morning. If you can go to bed 30 minutes earlier, get up 30 minutes earlier, whether that's getting up before the kids, or if you've not got kids, it's just getting up 30 minutes earlier anyway, and then use that time constructively but in a different way. So then, have your breakfast, have your coffee or whatever it is, and then instead of you using that time in the evening prior to binge watch, get a notepad out and do what we said before. Just if you could make one thing better in the next 30 days, 60 days in the business, what would it be? And it might be, like we said before, fucking getting rid of rad fitting, or it could just be making a little bit more money because, I'd like to go on holiday in 6-12 months' time. I want to do the school run, like we said before. Write down what you want to do, and write down what needs to be done to be able to achieve it. So whether that's making a little bit more money this month or, whatever it might be, just make that as a little start. What small thing would I like to change, and how can I do it? And that can be enough, can it? That can be the catalyst.
Again, it sounds simple, but why does no one do it? Or not no one, but you know what I mean. Why do so many choose not to do it?
In this game, it's generally just being busy because you're busy, isn't it? Like,
because
you don't want to walk away from the money, and like most guys feel like by not being out working all of the time, they're leaving money on the table. Even though taking a step, like sometimes, like I love that analogy of sometimes you've got to slow down to speed up, and it's so true in this industry. This time of year, so we've just rolled into June now. June and July are statistically the quietest months of the year for heating, for the heating industry. Now is the time to get going. If you're going to build a routine or try something new or start thinking a little bit more on a different scale or even a different angle, now is the time to do it.
Yeah, because come October, November, December, life becomes very, very
wild,
difficult, doesn't
it? Yeah. And, naturally things will drop off because, again, you have got to ride the wave sometimes. But if you've built that stronger routine through the summer, okay, you might not be able to then train 5 days a week when it's December. But even if you're doing 2 or 3, it's still way better than the zero that you used to.
The zero that was there, yeah.
But and again, that, or even you might write down one of those things on that piece of paper. Maybe spend an hour less in the pub with that particular group, or maybe spend that hour with the kids instead of going straight to the pub from that last job on a Friday. Go and we'll see the kids for an hour, or I'll do the school run and then I'll go out, or whatever it might be. Or it could then evolve from that of actually maybe, like you were saying before about the circle of people you surround yourself with, maybe I want to start exposing myself to people, not in that kind of way, but giving myself a bit more exposure to people who have a better quality of mindset. So again, to use them 2 groups that I used before, you might be someone who's in a group such as Plum Chat who can see those kind of posts that's very much just focused on being on the job. And when someone like yourself prompts that, you need to know your numbers, essentially, and everyone's saying, well, why do we need to know numbers? No, I don't. I'm fine. Just migrate yourself over to the Off the Tools group and even if you just read the same post, look at the kind of comments, and if you can hand on heart after reading both of them objectively, or read all the comments on the post in Plum Chat, read all the comments on the post in Off the Tools, and tell me if you can hand on heart and say the attitude of the people in Plum Chat is better in life and in business and as a person is better in that then pull yourself back out the group. But I doubt anyone can do it when there's people in there saying, well, yeah, you should know your numbers. If you want to make your kids' lives better, your own life better, your partner's life better, whatever it might be, just create a better business or work a bit less, make a bit more money. When the people are saying things like that, that's better. That's just better. Yeah. And if that's the kind of people you want to surround yourself with, spend more time
in there
and look and read some of the stuff, because there's most of the people in those kind of groups, those more development focused groups, are going to give you stuff that's going to better themselves. And the shit reality of it is, if someone's like, what is it, a drowning person will always try and drag you down with them, kind of thing. And I think unfortunately there's a lot of people out there like that. There's people who, because they don't know their numbers, and I say that we keep going on about these posts, but it's so relevant. Because they don't know their numbers, they then choose to be defensive, like I said before, and then attack you back saying, well, why do I need to know my numbers, and why is it any of your business? Instead of the flip side of it, and saying, you know what, even for the people who were in off the tools group who genuinely didn't know the numbers, were like, oh, yeah, I don't know them, I know I should.
Yeah, I had hundreds of people download the spreadsheet that I put together that went with that post. So it just goes to show, that there was a lot of people that actually were like, yeah, shit, you know what, I should actually probably know some basic things here. And that we're using that as just a very good example, but that can be applied across all aspects of your business and life, can't it?
Yeah. And that can be that little starting moment, just changing. It does, like you said before, it doesn't have to be the people you surround yourself with, because it doesn't have to start on such a big scale. If you still like going to the pub on a Friday with that gang, with that group of people, and doing 10 pints and then going home, and you love doing that and you don't want to change it, you don't have to. You can still do that if you want. Just, it can be on an online space. If you then, once you've done that, then you go and sit at home and scroll social media, just dip your toe in the water of other groups.
That brings me on to an amazing story, right? So I used to listen to Radio 1 every morning. What was his name? Chunky guy. Chris Moyles.
Yes.
Chris Moyles. So my routine was go and get a coffee, chocolate muffin every morning, listen to Chris Moyles as I'm driving around, and then I think it was Scott, someone that come on after him. And back in like 2016 time, I started switching out listening to the radio to listening to audio books and podcasts around business and personal development. And that was just a simple change from listening to music to listening to some educational, motivational information. And the reason I bring it up is because not only did it help me massively, The Apprentice at the time was a young lad, absolute top guy, kickboxer, big strong lad now. He messaged me recently and he was like, Wayne, I just want to say thank you. And I was like, what for, mate? He was like, all of those audiobooks and podcasts that we listened to driving round, he said, he's only like 22, 23, whatever he is. He started with me when he was 15. The industry weren't for him. He went off on a different path. But it even affected him. He took the time to message me and thank me for basically making him listen to this stuff, because it said it changed his life. It changed his whole perception on what is possible and what is achievable. And he now owns his own, I think he's got a couple of rental properties. He's absolutely machine, like chiseled, he's looked after himself. He's absolutely smashing it. And yes, he might have done that. Of course, he might have gone down that route. He might have had the success that he's having. But he felt that it played a big part. And I know personally it played a huge part, because those hours driving around were the people I was surrounding myself with. I could have listened to Talk Sport or Chris Moyles in the morning. They would have been the people I was surrounding myself with. But instead, I chose Audible books. I chose podcasts around all different, like some are fun podcasts. So they're not even business related, but they're talking about things that I'm interested in. And some were obviously educational around marketing and sales and systems and automations. And Yeah, so it doesn't have to be in person. It doesn't have to be on social media. It can just be what is going into your ears.
That's a good point,
eyes.
that, because there's so much time spent driving around in the van or
Mate,
on
I was
site.
going through, I would say 4 to 6 hours of content a day when I was out in the van, listening in the van. Then I'd have an ear pod in,
same.
and I dread to think how many hours I've actually spent listening when you could have just listened to music. Yeah, you could have just listened to some politics show or whatever, And I understand if that's your interest and you like that, there has to be an element of that. But if you could just squeeze in 1 hour a day, we all have wireless headphones. We all have vans that can play through Bluetooth. There's no reason why you couldn't get an hour's worth of different content into your brain, and then you're just seeing life in a completely different way, aren't you?
The momentum will probably build from that. If there's the tiniest part of you, like we said before, there's the tiniest part of you that thinks you want a little bit more from your life, just start by doing something like that. Like trying to look at your daily routine and look at great point there with the time in the van or time on site. If you're on a job where you don't need to interact with another trade or a customer, stick your AirPod in. Just put one in, and then if someone if they speak to you, put one in. Or the van is, in my opinion, always going to be the best shout. Some guys might be job hopping, but there's going to be plenty of guys who might drive an hour to a job. There's an hour. That's a long time, and like you say, you don't have to be in person.
Hour, you can't do any physical activity like you're driving, ain't but you can consume better information, can't you?
Or it can be, it could be a podcast, it could be an audio book. You could put
mainly the Off the Tools podcast. Obviously, that will fill up hundreds of hours for you.
There's some bangers, to be fair, and that can you need to find the spark. And I say you might not be able to do audio books or podcasts, but you might be murder for scrolling social media. If you're spending all your time on the forums that are very much focused on the tools kind of stuff, have a look at other forums that are more focused about business and being, the back end stuff off the tools, whether it's systems or whatever, just to have another look at that side of things rather than be like, I've got massive amounts of respect for the lads that want to be the absolute best engineer they can be. But the potentially unfortunate reality of things is being a phenomenal engineer is just not enough. Unless you can find a job role where that company really, really values the fact that you're a phenomenal engineer and pays you accordingly for it, then that's great. But just being a phenomenal engineer on your own, working for yourself, is not enough. That you don't get rewarded enough without building the bigger picture around it. It doesn't have to be, like I said before, it doesn't have to be having a team, building a bigger business and having a team out on the tools and a back-end team. If you just want to be the best version of you and be paid accordingly, then it requires a little bit more. So it's good, and that's going to require some education. If all of your focus and education has been on being the best engineer and having the best equipment, etc., you're going to have to pivot a little bit of that focus onto some of the back-end development or personal development side of things outside of the realms of just getting better and better on the tools. And that's just the world that we live in. We spoke last time about, people can buy something on Amazon and it be there the same day. And that's the world that we live in. People just doing a really good job is not enough, because most people don't generally know the difference between a good job and a bad job, or an average job. A boiler service is a boiler service. A stripped down boiler service is a stripped down boiler service. Whether the heat exchanger inside looks like it's been polished with Brasso or it's just clean enough to do its job makes no odds to the customer. Whereas all of the back end stuff is what people see nowadays. So if you do a good job, it doesn't have to be an absolutely amazing job, but if you do a good job and stack the back end stuff around it, you'll be more successful than the guy who's absolutely amazing and he's polishing his pipe works and all that sort of stuff. The value comes from the rest of the stuff, and to get involved in learning the rest of that, it starts with something outside of the realms of just being immersed on the tool side of things. Like, we spoke about, people you surround yourself with online and offline, the things that you absorb, the content that you absorb, the things that you listen to, or the things that you read, and the conversations that you have. So yeah, just take a step back, I think, is take a step back or take a step out of what you're doing from day to day, and just have that little think about, well, actually, are the people I'm surrounding myself with the right people? And again, like you said before, it's not about walking away from them people. It's about potentially adding some people who are maybe more, whose goals are more aligned with yours, and then maybe not so much limiting the time you spend with the people whose goals don't align with yours, but maybe just being less absorbing of that environment, and trying to just pick up on the little things that are going to propel you forward. And as we keep saying, that's just it. That's probably enough to just get the snowball moving.
Yeah, and that's when once that snowball moves, it gets easier.
Because that's all that happened with me. Yeah. Like I said last time, I was just the guy doing emergency call-out work. Just an average at best engineer. I'll say that until I'm blue in the face. I'm an average at best engineer. It's okay at service and repair. But it was just that little thing of, well, actually, there's less engineers in the world, in the country. There's more houses. There's more people. How can that be capitalised on? Yeah. And then again, that ball rolling. And again, most guys are probably to go off topic a little bit more. Most guys are probably not using software. Just using software in itself will buy you back way more time than it costs. So even if you're someone who spends, let's say, you might spend 3 hours a week sending invoicing and quotes. If you invest in some software, then the software is going to get you that time back. If you want to use it doing more work on the tools, you can use it doing more work on the tools. If you want to use it spending time with your family, use it spending time with your family. But spending a little bit on the back end stuff will gain you way more time in the business to use as you see fit. So like I say, whether it's you want to go and earn more money or you want to spend more time on yourself, then you have the choice. But that's just one thing that, one of the first things that I realised, because as I say, I old schooled it for a long time and just been out doing the work. It was only when I'd started on that journey, I started to see, well, actually, there's job management software. It isn't that expensive for what it is. We don't live in a world of paper certs anymore. Let's put something in place that is going to save me having to sit down filling out a cert, or it's going to save me having to, like, if you use ServiceMate as an example, one of the facilities that's built into ServiceMate is that you can take a payment on site before you've even left site. They can pay if your engineers are using, like for example, I was using an iPhone Max on site, then it has the tap to pay feature on it. So for anyone who's having to spend time sending out invoices and chasing payments, if you implemented a software like ServiceMate, you can be on site, you can complete the job, customer can tap to pay straight onto ServiceMate Pay on the phone, and it's done. And then there's a series of events that then happen then where it automatically reconciles with your accounting software.
Saves more time.
It saves even more time. Some guys might be elevating themselves a little bit. And I know a few lads like this, a customer might ring up, they book a job in, they will then manually send them a text to confirm that they're booked in for a particular day and time. And then manually on the day that the job is, when they're setting off to go to that job, they might manually send them a text. Service mate does that automatically. Yeah. So again, it's more time saved, more headspace. So
this comes back to mindset, though. You know how many guys I speak to, and you come across it too, Andy, that see it as an expense.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm not paying that. I'm not paying out that much money for it. When in reality, if you was to spend that little bit of money, save that bit of time, guess what you can do with that fucking time?
Yeah.
You can use that time to improve yourself, you know, and find that extra bit of space in your life that you need to implement the routines that you want to do. It all connects, doesn't it?
Yeah, and again, like you say, that's a mindset thing generally, because if you've come up from, like I said before, you've been trained by the old guy who's like, well, I've always just used certs. What's the problem? Yeah. Where it's like, you know, to super simplify the numbers, if you can buy a software that costs you, for a figure, £100 a month, but it saves you an hour a week. Like, what do you want to do? Like, you can go and do one job for one of the weeks and cover the costs.
Yeah.
Like as well, on top of all the other impressive things that it can do that makes life easier, like sending service reminders and things like that. Why would you not just at least have a conversation with someone who's using a software? Yeah. So like I say, if you like pull yourself out of the groups where people are saying, no, I don't want to spend that. And again, there's, like you said, I see it time and time again, and it always amazes me when people say, oh, I'm looking at getting a software, but it's £10 a month, I don't want to be doing that. Or it's £100 a year, I don't really want to justify that, or I can't justify that. But because it's that short-sighted view of like, whereas if you're in around the right group of people, whether it be off the tools group or another group, if you're around those kind of people who've been using software for years, they're just going to say, I don't see how you can run a business in 2025 without software.
But it's amazing how all of these conversations link back to it's what you surround yourself with. Yeah. You know, if you're hearing people like us say, if you do that and you can save X amount of hours and use those hours, whether for monetary value, you know, if you want more money, use them hours saved to earn more money, or it's
You can go on and on. It's like the VA thing, isn't it? If you know, using a call, using someone else to handle your calls, that people say, oh, I don't want the expense. I'll just save money and do it myself. But again, if you save, just for a number, 3 hours a week by using someone else to answer your calls for you, but it only costs you £100, then again, like you said, what can you do? You can go out and earn more money than the person that has cost you, because we can make good money out on the tools, and there's certain aspects of the game are much easier and cheaper to outsource. Again, limiting beliefs and mindset, like you say.
Yep.
So, but it has to, like you say, it has to start somewhere, and the easiest thing to do, or the two easiest things to do, is control what you're absorbing, what information you're absorbing. So whether that's switching off the radio and the news and trying a podcast or an Audible, and the content that you absorb visually as well. So let's, for this reference, call it social media and the forums that you're in. Just pivot it and try it. And like I said before, just try it. Like, just add yourself to a group where it's people that aren't just hyper focused on the tool side of the industry, and get involved with some of the people that are a little bit more about the business side of things and the growth, or just making a better version. And as I keep going on about, it doesn't have to be, you know, say, oh, I don't want the hassle of staff. It's a nightmare. It doesn't even have to be that. You can just be the best version of a sole trader you could possibly be. And that, like, you know, I have said many times with you, you're going to, like, just, if I was to decide to be a sole trader tomorrow, and just go and work on my own, I still would not do it without software and someone to answer the phone. Yeah. Because
of the time that it buys you back, doesn't it?
And it can just be that. And if that perks your interest, go and join a group where people are talking about that kind of thing. People say, I'm happy working on my own. I like working on the tools. I don't like answering the phone, and I don't like doing invoicing, quotes, writing stuff down, filling out paper certs. I don't like doing any of that, but I love being on the tools and I love being on my own, and that's all I want. But I don't want to be doing the other stuff. What are my options? And people will just come straight in, get some software, get a call handling person, and then you don't have to be checking your phone while you're on a job. You can be laser focused and get stuck in. Because I imagine you say to guys, what's the biggest bugbear? And it's like, well, dealing with the phone.
Yeah.
Like, I'm stuck in on an install, so I'm in the zone. I'm laser leveling my pipes, and then my phone rings. I've got to answer it though, because I don't want to miss a job. So I answer the phone, and then it's Mrs. Jones from down the road, and she starts saying, I've got this, and this. And then I'm out at the van, I'm writing stuff down. 20 minutes pass, and then I've got to go and start again then, and I've got to try and get back in the zone. If you don't have to do that, you're going to be more productive. You're probably going to finish earlier. You're probably going to do a better job.
And have less pressure as well, just less stuff on your shoulder.
Most of us don't like answering the phone.
No.
So it's, But again, as we keep saying, it starts with the people that you surround yourself with.
Yeah, definitely does. Definitely does. What else did you want to talk about?
I don't know. We could go on and on and on, can't we?
Could,
but just how options for people, really. I mean, people probably don't know where to start, and I know we've said before you can start with Audible podcasts or whatever, but like, what about the people who are too distracted to do things like that, who maybe need a little bit more guidance? People who are feeling so like lost in the realms of business, who need a little bit more of a guiding hand. What would you suggest for them?
So I've briefly touched on it, but like making small changes, and some of those small changes would be to come and find groups like Off the Tools. Get involved in a new community that has a different mindset to the one that you're currently spending a lot of time in. I genuinely feel like, for example, the Off the Tools Facebook group, right? Completely free. Like, there's no charge. Yep. It's just a safe place where you can ask questions, you can hear other people's opinion, you can start to change your perception. I genuinely believe that for a lot of people can be the key in the door. Yeah. Not necessarily going to be the door open, but it's going to unlock it. And then if you're hungry and if you're inquisitive, then you can walk through that door, and then the world is your oyster from there, isn't it? Would you agree? Or
yeah, that's it. And it's like you say, it's a free. There's so much information is free nowadays.
Yeah.
Why would you not want to at least just cast your eye over it and have a look at the people who are in those kind of groups and what kind of mindset they've got? Like I say, there's probably very few lads still out there grafting, who are completely happy with their life.
Andy's choking. See, we record live because I ain't editing it out.
Tickling my throat. Who are completely happy with the life, and like I say, they could be happy with the money, but not happy with the time that they're spending on the jobs or out on the tools, or it could be the vice versa. They could be like, well, actually, I only work a few days a week, but I could do with a bit more money. Then you need to have these conversations with people who've probably been there before,
or are going through it now.
And like you say, there's how many members are in Off Tools?
It's 5,000.
There's plenty of people in there that can give you some advice, and like you said, the likelihood is there'll be people in there who are in probably almost the exact same position as you, or they've already been through it, and that's where then the real advice comes from.
Yeah.
I've had Zoom calls with people who're like, well, I'm saying yes to everything, but I'm spread too thinly. I'm not sure what I want to do moving forward. And then you can start to look at, well, actually, are you making as much money from your bathrooms as you are from your boiler installs? Or, you know, are they taking up too much of your time? Where's the points that aren't working for you? And you can then start to work towards creating that kind of life that they want when it comes to the business side of things. Like I said, there's plenty of lads who love being on the tools, but they might not like certain aspects of it, but they don't know where to start with getting rid of them. Or I've got to do the bathrooms because it keeps me through the summer. But then it's like, well, what do you do in the winter? We do a lot of servicing and repairs. Well, can you get a software such as, I don't know, maybe Sales Lion, where it allows you to track when you've done the services, and you can then look to you can do, like, say, a busy winter of servicing. Then as you roll into the summer months, you can create an offer, because you can see when those services is due. You can contact them and start to pull them into the summer by creating an offer that works for them.
Just a simple example of how a software can aid you, isn't it?
But that's just one little example of how you can work towards not having to do some of the crap you don't like. Obviously, we joked about fitting the radiators, but that's just a weird thing with me. But bathrooms seems to be a big sticking point in this game. People like to do them because it can block up 2 weeks of a diary.
Keeps the diary
and it's not seasonal. But you're just doing it for the sake of doing it. Like, just as if your pricing structure's wrong, are you just out working for the sake of working? Like the letting agency stuff we spoke about before. If you're running around doing 10 certs at 40 quid because you say, yeah, but it gets me 400 quid a day. But then, do you want to be running around doing 10 certs for one in a day? Do you want to be putting your name to that half-arsed job, which it has to be to do 10 a day?
Yeah.
And then, ultimately, the penultimate one of it, what happens if the letting agents find someone else who'll do it for 35 quid and they pull that rug from under you, and then you
have nothing?
Yeah, because the problem with the low-value, high-volume jobs is they have to constantly be run at that level. If somebody pulls the plug on them, you're in a pickle. Versus, let's say look at the other end of the scale. Let's say you have a couple of, we'll stick with the rental property scenario. Let's say you've got two property investors who've maybe just got like 3 or 4 properties each, but it's a higher end client. They want a really good job. Instead of having a FGA and runaway CP12 done, they want a full safety cert on the property and a full strip down boiler service done every year, and you charge 250 quid for that. You only need to do a couple of them a day to generate more money than the 10 jobs
you were doing. And
I know it's a different kind of world, but that's just an example of, like, you need to start to take a step back and look at what you're doing in your business and see, actually, is this sustainable? Do I want to be carrying on doing this? If something went wrong in this particular realm, how would my life look? Like you say, if you're doing 50% of your work for a builder, what happens if the builder goes bust? Or what happens if the builder emigrates to Australia?
Yeah.
Can I still pay my bills? You know what I mean? That's why we've always targeted domestic homeowners.
Yeah, we're the same. Yeah.
And like, I'm not saying having contracts with builders and letting agents is bad. It's not. But you have to use it and bend it to suit your business's needs, because you have to remember, I see, like, doing the work for the builders it's just cash flow, because you're not growing your own customer portfolio, same as doing the letting agents, because you're just doing work for them. It's essentially like a subcontracting kind of role, because you're not growing your business. You're just fueling a personal life, the business costs, whatever it might be. If that works for you, that's fine. But that is not a business, because you're not growing anything. You're just doing.
Yeah, you're just turning up. Yeah,
you're getting paid for it. Yeah. It's a job that's been branded in a different way. Like, say, if that works for you and that's what you want to do, that's fine. But if you're just doing that because that's all you can do, again, that's when it comes time to get that piece of paper and write it down. Okay, 50% of my work is from that. How can I get that to 25%?
Yeah.
And again,
and it's hard to do all of what you've just spoke about, though, without that bit of extra time and that bit of clarity, and ultimately that support as well. Because it's a very lonely world out there if you're trying to do all of this on your own, isn't it?
And that can be the question in itself.
Yeah.
I'm currently doing all of my work. Currently comes from subcontracting work. I'm concerned that if one of the contracts drops, that I'm not going to be able to pay my mortgage. What advice would you give? And that's then, it could be anything like, okay, try and start to build your own domestic homeowner portfolio and spread the risk a little bit, rather than having just four like big contracts. But that's something that we could, rather than us sitting down going through all these different scenarios, you better just to, like say, go into a group like Off the Tools and just ask a question. Like, don't be shy. Like, nobody really gives a shit.
For those that haven't ever been in or haven't been in Off the Tools group for a while, it isn't like other groups. It's not like it's not full of people that are just going to demonise you and judge you. It really isn't. And if there are people that creep in like that, they soon get booted out the door. It's a vibrant community designed to support people. That is fundamentally what it was. Everything I wish I had 15 years ago when I started my journey. And it's there for people to get involved with.
Head on over.
Yeah. Right, shall we? It's been nearly 2 hours, so shall we give the listeners a rest and save some more stuff for a part 3 to do soon?
Yeah, I think a part 3 is due, and we can. I think now off the back of that, it's quite a long one. I didn't think it was going to be that long. It was just a general chit chat, but it doesn't always happen with me and you. I think like people have got questions. If people don't want to post in the group, if people are a bit like concerned about being judged or whatever it might be, just send a direct message to me or you. If you've got questions about, I'm stuck, I'm not sure what to do, I'm concerned about, paying my bills or whatever it might be, just reach out and ask the question. Yeah. And for people who aren't too shy, jumping Off the Tools and ask the question in there. Yeah, I want to 2025 needs to be a stronger year than 2024. What can I do to achieve that? How can I do things a little bit better? How can I, like we said, we've been speaking about for the last 2 hours, how can I get more time or more money or more structure to my life? What are my options? And like we said before, there'll be someone in the group who's already been in your position and has come out of it, or is currently in a similar position. They only have to be a little bit ahead. Like we said before, it might just be, I'm taking way too long writing up invoices and filling out certificates, and it's killing my time. My missus is on my back. Have you finished that work yet? It's Friday night. What can I do to fix that? Can we get some software? And then you can look at what software is going to work for you. So there's a multitude of solutions to a multitude of problems, isn't there? But it starts with a question.
It certainly does. Right, I think we're going to start to call that a day. But just to sort of summarise everything we've just spoke about. So bear in mind it's been over 2 hours, so we might forget some bits and bobs here. But I think for me, being in the conversation, obviously, I think the key things for me, the message that I want to sort of get out there is nothing changes unless something changes, and start small. Start with some small changes that aren't too challenging to start with, and get that momentum building. What about yourself? What would you say some sort of closing words would be?
Same, yeah. Don't be too shy to ask a question. There's never a bad question. Sounds very cliche to say it, but there's never a bad question. No one's going to judge you. And again, sometimes you might have to swallow a little bit. Most of us are in the groups or in this industry are men, and we do find it hard to swallow that pride sometimes. Sadly, but again, you've got to try and look past that. And as I keep harping on about what's going to make your life better, it could be your kids, your wife, your husband, whoever it is, or your parents, siblings, whatever you think you can, whoever you think is life you can improve by making more time, more freedom, more money, whatever it happens to be, then just ask the question. You've got to look past that stubbornness, or just ask the question. And like I say, if you don't want to ask it in public, ask it in private. For me, or you,
we're there to help, aren't we?
It's and like once you get a little bit further down the route in business, and like I was saying before, I've got some new staff starting that's going to give a bit more free time. You trying to apply a bit of tact when I say this. You kind of move a little bit past a certain point or issues that men suffer with, of not wanting to be too like open and trusting and helpful to people, because you're often protecting yourself.
Yeah.
But as you get a little bit further down that route and you've learned some things, then you reach a point where you want to pass that help on to other people. It's because you get, like we've spoke about this at length, that you get a certain like warmth from it, helping other people, and then you seeing other people succeed is success to you as well, when you've helped them, like, and it can be such the smallest thing, like we said before, don't charge that price for that job because it's a bit out your area. Oh, but I need the job. Spend the time, instead of going out your area, stay in your area, do some flyers. It could be anything like that. That's took
just a
10 seconds to give that, you know what I mean? And people go, oh yeah, never thought about that, because it's fucking shit on your own. And it's very hard to see the woods from the trees. And it just takes that small conversation of a different, someone might say, oh, thought about trying check a trade, but, I don't think it works. Well, then you can say, well, actually, what model have you got? What area you're in? And then
what's your strategy with it? How are you going to communicate with these people?
You'll find someone who's tried it and it's worked, or it's tried it and not worked, and then it's answered your question, and then okay, well, let's try something else. So it just all needs to be done via a question or a conversation. Yeah,
definitely. I think that's a perfect way to end. So thank you very much, Andy. Part 3 coming soon, because we're going to need another 2-hour slot to get that done. But I hope you've enjoyed it, guys and girls. Please share it with anyone you think it might benefit. And then I look forward to speaking to you all again soon. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye, guys.